Welcome to this special Zoom meeting of the Montana State Library Commission. My goal is to lead a productive meeting that allows everyone to have time to ask questions and express an opinion. And I believe the best way to do that online is to use the raise your hand function and wait to be recognized. That said, I personally have to be finished by 2:30 today if we can, as I have another commitment at that time. We are missing Genevieve today, but State Library and Jenny staff and several other staff members will help us with monitoring and notes. I will call this meeting to order at 1:02. Joining us today are some special guests who are available to provide answers to specific questions the commissioners may have. We welcome from the governor's office, Lieutenant Governor Kristen Juras.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Is Dylan here?
No, Dylan is not available, but Nancy Hall from the governor's office of budget planning is also here for budget questions.
Exactly. And from state procurement, we have Lauren Spatzerath. Is that right, Lauren? And from Hoffman, New York, we have Addie Palin. So we have all those, and our commissioners, I believe we have a quorum. We have Carmen, Tom, Robin, myself, and have we seen Tammy yet?
I'm here.
Okay, and Tammy.
I
All
know.
right, sounds good.
If I could, Madam Chair, this
Yeah.
is Superintendent Elsie Arnson. Don't know if you recognize that I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
yes,
Here in person. And if I
in
could just
person.
take a quick moment, knowing time is precious. I have 3 guests that are shadowing me from a youth, I want to say, a youth organization that the state recognized called My Life. And we all support everyone with any ability within our state. And if I could just have our youth that are here, there's only 3 of them, but I know there's a army behind them that are out throughout the Capitol looking and shadowing others. So just state your name and your home, where you're coming from.
Hi, my name is Tiana Gole. I'm from Thompson Falls.
Hello, I'm Dre Nelson and I'm from Bainville.
And I'm from Lewiston.
Lewistown.
Great.
So we have a great triangulation of students. These are juniors and seniors. So I had a wonderful opportunity to just share with them about my job the other day. And a lot of them raised their hand and said they wanted to be teachers and educators. So I think Montana's got a great future with our kids and our youth. So thank you very much for being here. And Brian, you can go ahead and shadow them back.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Welcome to the State
Thank
Library.
you.
Welcome.
Thank you for that moment.
Yes. All right. First, we have any additions to the agenda. I know Commissioner Burnett wants to add something under other business at the end of the meeting. Is there anyone else?
I
Okay.
have a suggestion that I would like to make at the end.
And who was that? I missed. Who
Oh, I'm
was
sorry, that's Carmen.
Carmen. Okay.
How do I need to raise my hand on here? Is that in the chat? Or in reactions, or do you want me to just do it like this, or how do I do that in Zoom, raise my hand?
Who's the Zoom expert on that?
Go to more, Carmen. There's a more at the top.
I've got more at the bottom. It says captions.
Oh, captions. Okay.
That's not it.
There should be another. That's all
Oh,
there is.
reactions. Okay, I found
Yeah.
it. It says reactions. Raise your hand. Okay.
Right. Okay.
All right. Sounds great. All right. I've got Carmen and Tom then. Okay. Well, our main item on our agenda is the Hoffman New York contract extension. Following Robert's Rules of Order, is there a motion?
Tammy, you are muted.
Oh, I have my hand up. I'm sorry. I guess I was muted. I would like to make a motion.
Okay.
I would like to thank Hoffman York for completing their first contract. I would like to move that we spend no more money or extend or add another contract with Hoffman York.
I second that.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we spend no more money or extend the contract of Hoffman York. Is there any discussion?
I also had, or make a new motion. Or new contract.
Or make it, okay. So it is,
Either
we spend
extend it-
no money or extend the contract or start
Make
a
a
new
new-
contract.
Yes,
Right, is there any discussion?
will we have the presentation at this time or will we
Well,
now?
they are here for. Would you like to, who would you like to hear from first?
Well, you
They're
said
here
you
to ask
wanted a
questions.
motion.
Yep, but we've
You
got a
want a motion.
motion now, and now we can discuss it and say, would you like to tell us your reasons why we should not?
I'm comfortable hearing what they have to say. Is everybody else? I would like the input of the other commissioners.
We have some information that we got regarding available funding. And I don't know if the commissioners saw that. I had asked Jenny for further explanation on how that works with the funding and what money reverts to the state. What we have to do if we let money kind of expire. And if everybody has read the email, then we know more about those questions. I don't know if Jenny at this point has anything to add to those explanations.
Well, just for the public record, Commissioner Cuthbertson had asked specifically about what might happen to the state special revenue funds, as well as the funds from the State Library Trust and the general fund dollars. So with regard to the state special revenue funds, those are the restricted funds for the real-time network and information, or the funds from the Land Information Act. Those unspent dollars, the cash would remain in that state special revenue fund. The state library would lose the authority to spend those dollars. The funding from the state library trust would remain in the trust. And again, we would need to come back at the commission to the commission at a later date to receive authority to spend those dollars. The general fund dollars, if not expended, would revert back to the state. To request authority to spend additional funding in the future, we could go back to the legislature in 2025 and request those dollars, but we would lose any ability to spend these monies. And there is no ability to spend them in the coming biennium.
So if I understand that correctly, the $3,875.92 would be stuck until the next legislative session, when we could say, when we need to get authorization again to use them for their intended purpose at the earliest in fiscal year 2026. Is that correct?
Carmen, that full 89,000 would be lost, the authority to spend that full amount, not just the 3,000.
But so what does it say remaining funding? At what point on that table that we're looking at, it says available, and then further on the right, it says remaining funding. So we're not talking about that remaining funding?
What is in the proposal is spending 85,550
Okay,
with 3,000 remaining.
so those 3,000 then would be stuck until fiscal year 2026, if I understand your explanation.
Under the current motion, all 89,000 would be
Okay.
stuck. Current motion.
Okay.
I have my hand up.
Go ahead.
So I just want to be clear, of this 283,000, only that 89,000 would be stuck till next biennium. The rest will be dispersed or put back into the library, correct?
No.
I want to clarify what I think I just heard. And how much will not be available at all until the next biennium of the 383 plus?
So Tammy, the answer to that question is this amount right here, the real-time network, state special
Right.
revenue. Land information, which is state special revenue,
Okay,
those amounts, there is not a mechanism to spend those until new appropriation is potentially given during the next legislative session.
okay.
And then we would revert that full 109,000.
This amount would revert to the
Okay.
state because it's part of the general fund.
I have two follow-up questions for probably the budget person with the state. And then my follow-up question is regarding the real-time network, which was approved by this legislation. Did this real-time network come from this legislation or in the past? And did this legislative session give us funding for real-time network? Because I would not think that would expire June, whatever. And my second question is for Jenny. Have we typically had 383,000 left at the end of the year? That seems like a healthy chunk of money to have not spent for library services throughout the year, other than the library trust fund. I understand that one, but the rest seems like quite a bit of money to have left not to be able to spend. Is that pretty typical of Jenny? So my first question would be the real-time network funding. Did that come from this legislative session? And my second question is this typical to have this much money left at the end of the year that goes back?
I'll jump in and answer this, but Nancy, please feel free if you want to correct me if I'm saying anything untrue. The money that is appropriated to us for real-time network was appropriated in the previous legislative session that happened in 2021. So this money is money that is appropriated for fiscal year 2023, which runs from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th of 2023. And my answer to is this typical is no, we typically do not have this much money left over. Typically, I try to budget so that there is approximately $100,000 or so left within the budget for things to be spent throughout the year, unexpected expenses that might come up, increases in costs that we are unaware of at the beginning of the year. So if you look at the dollars that we have the ability to budget, land information and general fund, you can see that the 100,000 is there in general fund, and the 150,000 was included in the budget and it was a position that we did not hire throughout this fiscal year. So it is higher this year than it typically is.
And did the real-time network legislation that came through the session provide any money?
The real-time network funding that came from this recent legislative session will take effect this next fiscal year, starting in July.
And how much was that?
500,000 again in one-time only restricted funds, as well as the creation of the enterprise fund that will allow us to start collecting subscriptions later in the biennium.
Okay,
And just to clarify one small piece there, the 500,000 one-time only dollars are in our budget, not in the RTM legislation.
That's
But the authority for the subscription account is in the real-time network legislation.
and so technically it did not come with money, it came with the ability to raise money.
It did come with money, one-time only funding to help get the program set up.
Okay. I feel like you're saying two different things.
So may I make a clarification? This is
Yes.
Nancy Hall from the Budget Office. So the library was allowed in House Bill 2, 500,000
I'm having trouble hearing her.
per 5 and 26 for, excuse me?
Could
Can you
you
hear me?
repeat that? I had a hard time hearing that.
Okay, so the legislature allowed the library
Not
for
working.
each year, 25 and 26. Am I not? Okay, let me do some change in here so that I can.
If other people mute, that may help. So if you're not speaking and mute, that may help her.
Better.
I think so, Nancy.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the legislature for each year of 25 and 26, 24 and 25, 24 and 25, I'm sorry, I got my years wrong, allowed $500,000 of Montana MLIA funding to be used for real-time network implementation in each year. And that is one time only. So if they spend it in 24, they have $500,000 and they have $500,000 again in 25. This money, this $152,000 on this spreadsheet goes away at the end of 23. So June 30th, it is no longer available for spending. But the money stays in the fund and it goes for whatever else MLIA is spent for. Now there is other funding being spent out of the MLIA fund. So those funds are appropriated in effect going forward because the library has, and I didn't pull up the whole budget, but they have the $500,000 for the real-time network plus whatever else they spend MLIA funds on. This general fund appropriation again goes away. The authority to spend the $109,000 goes away at June 30th. But the library then also has additional general fund authority to spend during the 24-25 biennium. And the real-time network, there is no real-time network account per se, is there, Melissa?
No, it's the MLIA funding. It's just restricted to the real-time network.
To the real-time network. So that still lies in your MLIA funding fund and can appropriation authority for the actual cash to be spent somewhere else. And so, yes, you lose the authority in 2023 if you don't contract it by the end of the month, but you still have the funds and they are appropriated to be spent going forward.
I would just add that that while that's true, we didn't, when we adopted the FY24 budget, include any money for any kind of marketing contractor support. So, you know, while there is cash there, it would mean cutting something else in the budget if there was an expectation that we would use FY24 authority for something like this.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. This is Tammy Hall. I felt like I owed an explanation for my motion. Now that other people have had an opportunity to speak, I'd still like to hear from the other commissioners. I'd like to start by just saying thank you to Hoffman York for all the materials they presented to us. And I felt like they did a very thorough presentation of what this new contract would look like. I'd like to just make 7 quick points. They're quick, but I felt like you had a right to know why I was moving the way I was on this motion. The first one is I would encourage anybody listening or involved to go back and listen to the December 2020 meeting. It was quite enlightening, and it was when they first approved this work. So we've been at, I guess we have 3 years, 2.5. And it was very clear during that recording that the commission was within their authority to approve the funding for the contract. In fact, at one point, one of the commissioners asked Jenny if she was comfortable with the motion to go ahead and approve the contract. And Jenny's comment, and I'm close to verbatim, but I would not say it was word for word, was that I am not comfortable moving to procurement without this motion to go forward. So I don't think what we're doing is not what they've done in the past. Secondly, the work of Hoffman York was completed will be completed at the end of June. So my next point is that we would need a new contract. This is a completely new focus from what was initially in that discussion, if you go back to December 2020, and that has been completed. So number one, we do have permission and have from past history. 2, the work is completed. 3, this is a new contract. And that leads me to the discussion of a new contract, which is number 4. I do not believe personally, philosophically, we're required to sort of rush in and spend the money that has not been spent by the end of the year. I know there's an additional week here that if we turn this down, the library staff is free to go say, well, let's give Talking Books some more money here or do this. But I do not philosophically believe that we have a right to just go spend money so I'm not totally uncomfortable with that whole argument. Number 5, we have resources available in the state for this basically new contract we're being asked to approve. And I would like to look at those resources and make sure they've been utilized. And number 6, I have a problem with out of state. Now that's me, but I think we have incredibly talented companies in Montana that could provide this kind of PR if at some point we decided that we wanted to spend some money on a contract. I'm not comfortable with our Montana folks being left out of the picture. And I know on the other contract, I'm not talking about the previous contract. I know that was bid and everything was followed correctly, but I would like this time to make sure, if possible, a contract stayed in state. And the bottom line for me is it's just too much money. I just have a very hard time spending $250,000. That's $250,000. That's a big chunk of money, and I have a hard time spending that to, tell people after we already have done that for close to $250,000 that what we offer for services. I would hope they see how valuable the library is. I think we've rebranded, we've done all that. It's all working. To continue it is not a problem. We can do that, but I'm not comfortable with this money. Those are the reasons that I have that I made the motion. And so, Tom, I'm sure you have your own reasons, and the other people, whether you support it or not, I felt you had a right to understand my reasons. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I'll state 2 reasons. A change of emphasis from general rebranding to securing subscribers. And number 2, I think that we can secure those subscribers needed to make SB 60 work, the certain number of subscribers that were envisioned in each ensuing year with existing resources in the library. I think it needs a sales effort, not a general marketing effort.
Robin, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm also wondering if if we have a PR department in the library, a public information officer, anything that we can utilize that could do a lot of the things that Hoffman York has proposed in the new contract. Anyone can answer my question. I just want to know if there's if we have a public relations person in the Montana State Library.
Robin, we've talked about hiring that position. We don't currently have a public relations person or a PIO.
I think the answer is that work would largely fall on myself and our network administrator. Our real-time network administrator.
Madam Chairman, may I ask a follow-up question to Robbins?
Yes.
Does the state have ability that we can use? Not that we have it in-house, but does the state provide those services?
I think that would be a question for the Department of Administration, people online. I'm not sure if Director Giles is online, but I'm pretty sure someone is online.
Yeah, Lieutenant Governor, Madam Chair, this is Misty Ann Giles, Director of Administration. So a couple of different things there. Usually agencies do have PIOs internally to do a lot of this internal work because it is easier to have that work in-house. But then additionally, we've been working over the last few months on launching, marketing, branding, CXO experience enterprise-wide. We used MDT as our first test case to get that work rolling over the last few months. It was very successful to kind of give us a proof of concept. And we are about to do an enterprise-wide contract to support all agencies for rebranding, website redesign, and things like that. I will say most agencies are not looking at spending. This is just for information for how other agencies handle this specifically for marketing purposes. We have one agency, for example, on Monday that rebranded internally and is launching without any additional new dollars. But we will be having a contract over the course of this summer that agencies can piggyback off of that kind of follows that enterprise vision for how websites should be redone and redesigned based on CXO best practices. And then we'll also have other ancillary support as well. But most agencies do have a PIO type level support internally that absorbs that marketing cost in-house versus spending external dollars. There's a couple of exceptions to that rule, but that's more the standard business model across most all state agencies, big and small.
Chair, Madam
Yes.
Chair.
Go ahead.
Then Misty, is it possible for MSL to use the administrative services then?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. Absolutely. That's our vision is we would prefer to have more of this master servicer agreement in one company that's working with the individual agencies. So we all have that same look and feel, right? Best practices for how people come in and understanding unique agency needs. And so we're all kind of in lockstep versus people going in different directions, because that has kind of been the historical problem with Montana when it comes to not just website marketing, branding, but a lot of these initiatives that my department's been working on over the last 2.5 years is thinking about more as a family and an enterprise approach versus individual agencies. So that would be the purpose of this contract. Agencies would help support that contract with their own funding, depending on their needs at different levels. But that would enable us to kind of work as a family and ensure this work gets done more quickly and to the unique agency needs versus having individual contracts across the enterprise. And we're anticipating it'll save taxpayer dollars because we're speaking with one voice, one contract, one family versus individual contracts across the government.
Okay. Let's go to Carmen next and then Jenny.
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that there's going to be some statewide awareness campaign that we could piggyback on. And maybe it helps to go through the actual Hoffman and York, what is it called? Scope of work for their phase 2 that we got. First, the overall brand awareness. I have to say that I continue to be disappointed after hearing that the idea behind the rebranding was to make the public more aware of the different services that the library has. I agree that maybe the old logo with the book in it might have been misleading because the library is doing much more than dealing with physical books. But I repeat myself saying that I don't see the new logo as telling anybody what the library does. So to me, that was not an improvement. I'm also looking, any print material that's now coming out from the state library will cost more because it's full color printing instead of just one color. So that was fiscally, and as far as the desired result, not a good thing. And I would not be in favor of spending more on point number one, the overall brand awareness. Point number two is the Talking Book Services plan. And I thought about this because I think we all deeply care about people who are struggling with some obstacle and have a hard time participating in our society. And I think the Talking Book program is an excellent thing. And what came to my mind is that the state library should work together with the Lions Clubs in the state of Montana. Part of their mission is to support the visually impaired. That would give the state library access to a local network of very committed volunteers that I'm sure would be willing to advertise this program so we could get more people on board and using that program. There's also the Deaf and Blind School in Great Falls that one could partner with. So I would hope that the state library could do that instead of spending what looks to me like a large amount of money on getting more people interested in that program. The real-time network is the one part where I thought we need to continue in some form to get the subscribers. Don't know exactly how that would work. On the cadastral, I can't really speak to that very knowledgeably. But I also want to say all over, if the idea of the awareness campaign was to let people know what the state library does, can't we on each of these sites that we have at the top under the logo and the name state library have a list of what we actually do and list the different things like the GIS. And then every time people open one of our applications, they would see this is another service by the state library. It just seems to me that spending $250,000 to try to achieve some of these things is not good use of money. I think we could do this better and spend less. Thank you.
Okay. Jenny, go ahead.
I guess I had a question for Director Giles. I don't know, Director, if you've had a chance to review the scope of work that was provided in the meeting materials. I think it would help the commission to maybe hear how D of A could address some of the needs within the scope of work that go beyond rebrand, which is largely complete at this point, and then web redesign. You know, we have specific goals for the Talking Book Library, for example, growing use of that program amongst the youth as well as caregivers of seniors who are losing their sight, and so forth.
Yeah, Jenny, I'm on here and I have Lauren with State Procurement with me as well. I'll speak at a high level and then she's done the deep dive on this and I'll let her speak more specifically to the commission. But long and short, it's a scope change. So anytime you have this much of a scope change, we require any agency to go back out for an RFP. If we did not allow that, most entities would simply continue to do sole sources and the Procurement Act would be without any real teeth or merit or fairness and transparency. In addition, there's beyond just the obvious scope creep, and it's a different change than the original contract, which was for that logo essentially. I think this is like an 83% increase in the original ask. So that's always a red flag for us too. If you come in with a contract for a lower amount and it's not just an tack on. I mean, it's more than half of the original contract amount. But Lauren, would you maybe be able to give the commission some more finer points based on the Procurement Act and kind of your analysis of, why there's just contractual challenges with this?
So Jenny, excuse me, when you use terms like RFP and sole source, you might have to put that in context for our commissioners who don't do procurement on a regular basis. Thanks.
That's a great point because we live in a different land than most folks on this planet when it comes to procurement. So sole source means that essentially you can go straight to any vendor directly. You do not have to post anything out for bid where we receive multiple bids. RFP means request for proposal. The Procurement Act requires that to be used unless there's an emergency or some sort of just weird circumstance, or there's literally only one vendor on the planet that can provide that service. And the purpose with the request for proposal process is it does provide that transparency in contracting. It allows the government to see multiple proposals, multiple vendors, multiple cost structures, timelines, and ensure that we're really getting the best bang for the buck. So that's our terminology there, but it's essentially that transparent process where we put out essentially an ask to the world of, hey, here's what we need, here's our budget, and so people submit those things in versus single-handedly picking a single company. It's very rare that we have one entity that can provide a service to the government, and that's usually in areas like corrections or HHS, dealing with our firefighters, areas like that, that is, truly unique. These type services are not unique in that vein. So, but I'll let Lauren speak a little bit more specifically as well.
And I just want to give some background. So the original contract with Hoffman York, that was awarded to them through a request for proposal. There were several bidders, and going through the procurement process, they were chosen. But this new contract extension is a sole source. It was not proposed to go out as a new request for proposal, and the sole source was Hoffman York because of their prior experience with the agency. So Lauren, now it's your turn.
So Jenny, just to make sure I'm clear on your question, when you asked if we've had time to review the scope that was inserted into the meeting, are you asking us to look within the scope and identify as to D of A's current process, like the enterprise-wide process, and see if we can provide some guidance, or as to how we went through this RFP process?
That was my question, Lauren. I appreciate you restating it. I want the commission to have a clear understanding of if we agree that the outreach proposed through the scope of work is important, to what extent through this new contract might D of A be able to fulfill those hopes and goals?
So I think generally, I'm gonna jump in here. So I've looked at the analysis that the state procurement team did and definitely understand the needs, and whether, I know the commission needs to talk through that, but I can say inherently it is such a scope change. We don't see a path forward with an 83% jump in the budget and a scope change from a logo to all these other facets, where there is no circumstance where we can say you can only sole source this. It needs to go through that transparent request for proposal process. I absolutely understand like the time limits on the money and things like that. And that's not personal to the state library. That if that was a concern, we should have been having this conversation back in like October. That we bump into that a lot, but money running out is not an urgency. An urgency is a COVID-19 pandemic, a federal law drop that we have to implement and onboard support in 3 months. Like that is an urgency. Corrections needs a staffing contract because they have a 40% vacancy rate. This is not an urgency where we can justify a sole source with the budget change being so dramatically different from the original proposal that was competitively bid in 2020. And this is an entirely different scope of work.
And just to add on to that, Jenny, I did not review the scope of work that was submitted in the meeting invite in the context of the current process that D of A is moving towards. I reviewed it as to how it applied to the current contract. If you would like my review of the scope of work, the second scope of work submitted, and how it compares to the enterprise, I'd be more than happy to do that and report back.
Robin, do you have a question?
Yes, I was just going to say something with what Carmen had stated. I was wondering, do we have a database with for the talking books? Do we have all the different eye doctors, ophthalmologists, of course MSDB we partner with, but all the different difficult offices that for people with difficulty seeing and disabilities seeing, or disabilities handling books, etc. Do we have a database with them? Do we also have a database with the people that would use the RTN, that use the cadastral? Do we have a database that we can go to and pull out, oh, oh, well, these people use the cadastral, so we need to go and speak with them at any meeting that we have, or we need to go and talk to teachers about the Talking Book program at the Montana Reading Conference. Do we have a database where we can go to access where we need to do this, do PR, to use a public information officer? That's my question. Do we have a database?
Robin, this is Evan. We do not, for the Talking Book Library, we do have a number of organizations that we try to reach out to, as you mentioned, MSDB, and NFB, which is National Federation for the Blind, MAB, Montana Association for the Blind. We also reach out to any number of smaller organizations, and there are a number of I think organizations listed on the proposal that we provided you that we've identified as potential.
Right.
In the case of cadastral, also no database specifically of users. We do have a good sense of the primary industries, and we're familiar with most of those professional organizations. In the case of RTN, we don't have any database necessarily of potential users, but we have certainly have a database of the existing users, the existing, that are using it with free access.
Okay, that would be a suggestion to start a database for each one of these, for the Talking Book, that would be for me, I would think getting a database with people that you can contact just to spread the news. That would be huge. Thank you.
Carmen?
Sounds to me like I just learned something new. My concern that was originally that I didn't see this as money well spent, but listening to the state procurement office, this is not a contract extension. This is too much of a change from the original scope of work. This is actually a new contract, and we cannot legally do it this way. That to me, for me, the conversation then is finished.
I have a question about the real-time network. And I'm not sure, I read so many things. Did I read that getting the subscribers was part of the original contract and that we did not go forward with that because of the timing of House Bill 60?
It was not part of the original contract, which I have sitting in front of me.
Okay, I maybe read that somewhere else.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I think that I asked that question at the last meeting is, did the legislature approve this money at the end of this session? And then are we supposed to spend it by the end of June? I didn't receive an answer from that, but from what I've been able to find with research is, no, that money had been advocated by the last legislature, and we have had the last year to spend it. We could have put it in before. So again, it's kind of leftover money that wasn't spent before. In respect for people's time and the fact that Tom has an additional item to bring forth, I guess I would share with Carmen, I think that once, as I said earlier, this work on the former contract is completed, this is a whole new contract. And I think maybe in the future, we might want to put on as discussing that one of the jobs in the future, not to add a job to the library, to our state staff, but if we have an opening, that we consider a PR person. That could be a very helpful position. That could be a different discussion, I think, because I think Robin brings up an excellent point with that. But at this point, unless somebody has something new, I would like to call on question on the motion on the floor and respectful of Peggy's time limits.
Anyone else on the commission, any comments? We need to ask for public comment. Is there anything, Melissa, or
I don't see anything. Mm-mm.
not seeing anything online? Okay. Well, it has been moved and seconded that, could you put up the motion, please? So I have it correctly. It was moved and seconded that we spend no more money or extend the contract or create a new contract with Hoffman York.
Can we change the spelling? Tammy is either Tamara or TMMY.
Sorry about that, Tammy.
No problem, no problem. It's not a big thing.
All right, it's time for a vote. All those in favor of this motion, say aye.
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 Hi.
All those opposed, say aye. Motion passes. Okay, we are on to our last part, which is other business. Tom?
Yes, I'd like to discuss and act on calling a meeting in the next couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, in which we prepare and forward a letter to the American Library Association in which we withdraw from the association. The association has elected a new president, and the president is a self-proclaimed Marxist. And I find that incompatible with our oath to the US Constitution.
Tom, would you be willing to read the statement that you have would you read the statement that this person made after being elected? And it was a close election, I understand. It was 5,000 votes to 4,500 or something, I don't know.
I'll read the tweet from Emily Drabinski, is the president-elect, and she will take office the 1st of July. Her tweet reads, "I just cannot believe that a Marxist lesbian who believes that collective power is possible to build and can be wielded for a better world is the president-elect of ALA. I am so excited for what we will do together. Solidarity, and my mom is so proud. I love you, Mom."
I support having a meeting to discuss withdrawing. I think this is the time to make a statement on. I find that very disturbing, very disturbing.
I agree.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
No, no motion yet, but I also agree that we should have a thoughtful, intentional discussion about it and find out exactly what the state library gets from being a partner or paying dues and having a subscription. But I think we need to give the staff time to gather that information and for other libraries or librarians and interest party to provide comment. I'm a little worried about doing it in the summer when people are on vacation and such. Would it be just as effective to do it at our next meeting?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I believe that 3 weeks would be plenty of time. And then it would be pertinent to the time frame in which the new president takes office at the American Library Association.
I know it's a busy time of year and I appreciate your concern, Peggy, but I feel very strongly, as Tom does, I'd like to make that statement to them as soon as possible that this is not serving the purposes of what they need to be doing. I would agree, Tom, that let's do a meeting in 3 weeks. A Zoom.
I agree with the meeting in 3 weeks. I would also like to see what services we do get from the ALA, just to see. But yes, I do agree that we should probably have a Zoom meeting.
Carmen?
I would like to know what membership entails for us, how much we pay for it and what we get from it. And I think as long as we give proper legal notice, that should be okay.
Well, we would need to send out a survey again about times and such. I'm kind of have some things scheduled, so, and I would like to be in on the conversation. So hopefully we can get everyone to pick a time sometime later in July.
Thank you. I agree.
I agree.
Jenny, what do you, I know you have people on vacation and such. Is that going to be an option?
That's my concern. There are a number of staff who rely on the American Library Association for services that I think it's important for the commission to be aware of. And I want to make sure that we can schedule a time for those staff to participate in that kind of discussion. I want to be very clear with the commission that I too have concerns about the president that's coming in, the statements that she's made. I've had personal conversations with her about how I believe her comments are impacting libraries around the country and the relationship with the American Library Association to libraries. So I support the commission taking a stand. I hope we can be open-minded about what response we might want to take. I certainly wouldn't want to lose access to resources that our staff rely upon through the American Library Association. And we need time to be able to prepare that kind of information and make sure the staff are available to share that information with you. July is going to be a very busy month for many of us with work travel and vacations. So I hope we can find time that will work with everyone. Our next meeting is August 9th. So, that's just over, I guess, 5 weeks away. So I would hope that if we can't find a time that's conducive, that we could put this on the August agenda.
Are you comfortable with that, Tom?
I've thought about, Madam Chair, I've thought
Yes.
about the possibility that some of these valuable services need to be taken into account. And our obligations are to the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the state of Montana, the rules of the state of Montana, the statutes of the state of Montana. And if we are reliant upon a private organization for critical services, that is subsidiary to our obligations, and we should not be shy of dismissing them.
Go ahead, Carmen.
With regard to staff, I would like to suggest that they prepare written reports if they cannot attend the meeting, and share their concerns in writing. I don't think it's necessary for them to be present in person. If that creates a conflict, they can certainly give us their comments in writing.
So we're going to charge the staff to send out a survey to see if we can find a date. Hopefully within, what'd you say, 3 weeks? Is that what you said?
Yes, please.
To have a special meeting? I don't think we have to have a motion for that. I think we can go ahead and
Concur.
agree that we would like to see if we can make that happen.
What is the legal requirement for us to announce a meeting?
For
We know-
open-
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Within 48 hours.
Okay.
Okay, and Carmen, you said you had something else?
It actually kind of dovetails with this. I was feeling that our August agenda was getting very full, and I was going to suggest that we maybe consider meeting more frequently, possibly by Zoom, to make sure that we can respond to issues in a timely manner. Meeting every two months leaves a big gap. I mean, this contract decision was all rushed for time. The time was an issue there. I just want to put that out there as an food for thought, that we might want to consider meeting more frequently in order to be able to make really timely decisions as the issues come up. Not anything for a motion or decision at this time, just food for thought.
And we have had this similar conversation before, so we will definitely continue to discuss that.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I would like to make clear that at the upcoming meeting that we survey and find a time sometime in July to meet on Zoom, that we be prepared to act yea or nay on this subject, that it will be an action item during that meeting.
yes. I understand that.
When do we pay the yearly membership fee? Do we have a date for that we can look up real quick? Is
It's
that
usually in
defined?
late fall, November, December, I believe, were the times. Before.
Chair, if I could ask,
Yes.
this is Elsie. All right, I'm here, sitting here. Melissa, how much money is it that we're looking at? Is it a 5-figure, I'm assuming, for the membership?
I would have to go look it up. I don't know.
Mhm,
I know it's less than 10,000. It's
Okay.
a handful of thousands.
And I also could say that any information flow, I mean, I know our meetings, we have lots of questions. If you would get us, I know it's hard on staff, especially with July, but any information flow prior to the meeting, we could be prepared and have a efficient meeting.
We'll do our best. Again, this
Yeah.
is gonna impact a lot of staff, so we'll do our best.
Thank you.
Any other comments or thoughts? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Oh, do we have something?
I make a motion that we adjourn our special meeting.
And I second it.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting
Thank
is
you, Peggy.
adjourned.
Thank you,
Thank
Peggy.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone.
There are ramifications for every.